This is a View from the Bridge, official podcast of the Belfast Giants for kingdomofthegiants.com. Today is, what day is it? It's Friday.
Friday.
Nobody knows what day it is. Everybody's losing track of the days. It's Friday, and we're doing something a little bit different. It's been about a month and a half since the lockdown of the Elite League. It's been about a month where we've all been locked in our own homes for our own better good, to try to suppress the curve, to try to save the NHS, to try to save each other, and try to get past what is a very difficult time for everybody. But it's also a very odd time because there's no sport, there's no hockey, there's no football, there's no cricket, there's no anything.
Well, that's not true. There's like
make your own entertainment.
There's
no what?
There's Russian table tennis.
There is Russian table tennis, Davy.
Always something.
And it's been very entertainment. I think the guy from Vladivostok is going to take the title, but we'll see. We'll see in the long term, you know. But so what we're going to do is we're going to try to make up and look back over what was basically 19 3/4 seasons of the Belfast Giants, and discuss who our starting six would be. I'm joined by two very good friends, and Neil Russell, who left the podcast a number of years ago and has been blacklisted ever since, to discuss what we think would be the Belfast Giants all-time starting six. And I'll start by introducing, as I always do, Mr. McGimpsey. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Patrick.
Mr. Kitchen, how are you?
I'm great. I was even better there until I noticed that I've got more hair than Davy, so I'm all right.
And Coach, you're right.
I'm very well, Patrick. It's taken Davy McGimpsey to kind of start this debate on our WhatsApp group for me to get an invite on this season, but delighted to be back on with you boys. I still listen in on a weekly basis. As you guys know, I will always feed back in, and I still think it's the best podcast in the Elite League. I think between you, says Davy, and the real deal, Joel Neal, you guys do a fantastic job. The content's absolutely superb. So whilst they may have vacated the building a few years ago, I still listen in intently on a weekly basis.
Diplomatic as always, Coach. Diplomatic as always. Good to have you back.
Do you like the
Do you know what? Do you know what the brilliant thing about this is, mate? Is the fact that the way the screen's been split, can't see them.
Ah, okay.
Can't see them. However, you're big on
they can pick it up.
You're big on the screen while the other two are smaller, so I don't know how that's going to look. So we're going to start, as I say, with starting six: goalkeeper, left, right, D, and our forward lines. And we'll start with the goalkeeper. We're looking for generally who we consider to be the number one all-time goalkeeper for the Belfast Giants over the last 19 3/4 seasons. I'm going to start directly with Mr. Simon Kitchen. Who's your nominee for that?
Oh, you threw me right into the deep end to start. This is Davy's baby, by the way. He should go first. But listen, we all know we've been around the Giants now for 19 3/4 seasons. We know there's been a plethora of top quality goaltenders, and playing the most games. Obviously, Stephen Murphy's in there, and when you look back 20 years ago, you had Derek Wilkinson, who played in the NHL, Mike Menard, who's coaching the NHL, and Mark Coughlin, Mike Bales, some top goaltenders. But to start it off, I'm going to go with a guy who's just vacated us, and Tyler Beskorowany, because our most successful season ever was year before last. And Besko was just absolutely incredible. It's difficult when you look at things from only being here for one season, and that's probably the most disappointing part of that, because I don't think any Belfast Giant fan from the season before last would argue, if they said that they were going to try and bring Tyler Beskorowany back, that there would be any arguments in any way, shape or form. And for me, over the 20 years, statistically, I'm sure I'll leave that part to our good friend, Mr. McGimpsey. But for me, the best goaltender we've ever had is Tyler Beskorowany.
Interesting, because obviously one of the one of the most recent goalkeepers outside of Shane Owen, and a standout goalkeeper when you consider statistically he has been. But I know that maybe Mr. McGimpsey's going to go elsewhere.
I'm surprised, actually. I thought Stephen Murphy, absolute lock for this position. Nearly 450 games for the Giants. He's won it all. He's won leagues. He's won playoffs, Challenge Cups. He's represented his country at the very highest level. He's done it for the longevity alone to be able to do this. He's had his testimony. He's been in Belfast however 10, 11, 12 years. To say over 300 wins for the club, I just don't see how you can go past Stephen Murphy.
Interesting, because you've said that the titles that you've listed that he's won. Well, technically outside of the playoffs, so is Tyler Beskorowany.
I think whenever you're looking at the Belfast Giants over a period of almost 20 years, longevity has to be something that gets you into this starting six. And I think for me, Stephen Murphy, 444 times, has started as our goaltender. As I say, he's won over 300 games. I know coach is already inhaled there about the longevity issue, but I really think whenever you look at a player, can you really have a one season wonder potentially in your starting six? For me, I could go on about Stephen Murphy and his statistics, which will stand up against Tyler Beskorowany's. Besko's stats are very, very, very slightly elevated above Stephen Murphy's, and I'm talking tiny numbers. Stephen Murphy has done it for 440 games. Besko's done it for 50, 60 games. I think whenever you put them side by side, they're very similar goaltenders in terms of numbers. And what they've done, Stephen Murphy, for this club, for me, is an absolute lock in the number 1 shirt.
So then, coach,
number 31 shirt, but you know what I mean.
So then, where does it go? Do we take it from the point of view of, or where you're going to go? Are you going to take a point of view of longevity, or are you going to take a point of an individual standout, or are you going to throw in Phil DeRuval?
Oh, there's a blast. Phil the rebound. I'm with Sis on this one. My starting goalie will be Tyler Beskorowany, and just like you three guys, been around the club now for 19 and a half seasons and seen it all, seen some unbelievable goaltenders in that time, seen some average ones as well in that time. But
seen some rubbish ones as well.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Some very distinctly average ones. But generally speaking, we've been very lucky. And I look back over the history of the club, and Sis mentioned it right off the top there, the likes of Mike Beals, who I thought Mike Beals would have actually been my second. He was kind of, I said to Davey earlier on today, I've done like kind of my starting six and then the backup six, and Mike Beals would be my second choice. I thought he was absolutely superb in an ISL team that was stacked, but the league itself was stacked as well. The standard of that of that league at that stage was definitely the strongest that I've ever seen. I think I think we're getting close to what we saw in the old ISL days. So Mike Beals was there, but for me, Tyler Beskorowany, what I saw last year, happened to see quite a few of the games on the road, watch all the games, as you guys know, on the webcast, listen to Sis and Co, who do a fantastic job on Giants TV. And for me, Beskorowany was just incredible. Some of his saves were highlight reel. And I always think, whenever it comes to a goaltender, I'm always thinking, who would I want between the pipes if I were to throw somebody in there to kind of save my life? Out of all the Belfast Giants goaltenders, I'm going Tyler Beskorowany. He was highlight reel. He was clutch, big games. I think I've stood with Big Sis, maybe you as well, Davey. Last year at the Challenge Cup final, Paddy, I know you were there as well, but for some reason I think I was stood beside Sis at this time. Beskorowany pulled off an absolutely incredible save in that Challenge Cup final in Cardiff. And we witnessed many others, and it's no surprise to me whatsoever that he's moved on to a higher league. And if you read the reports, and the reports are true, he could be moving on to a further higher league for next season, and very justifiably so as well. The stats are second to none.
Stats don't lie, Davey. So you're the outlier here, but you want to come back in?
Can anybody just cast themselves back 10 years almost this weekend when we were all gathered in the NIC for our last playoff win? And you're talking about clutch goalies, semi-final penalty shootout against the Nottingham Panthers. Who comes up big? Okay, Jeff Swell scores the goals, but if the other team score, then it's a different situation. Stephen Murphy makes a save. We go forward to Sunday to the final. It goes to a penalty shootout again. Max Breyer's coming down the ice. He digs. Stephen Murphy stands tall, makes a save, and allows Evan Chevrolet to go up the ice and score that goal. Stephen Murphy has done it all. Besko did it for a season. Stephen Murphy did that season on season on season. He won us leagues. He won us cups. On his back. We got on his back and won because of Stephen Murphy.
If you had to pick one goaltender to save your life, who are you picking?
In 2010, you're picking every player we're picking here we're going back to what they were in their prime. We're picking the player in
Yeah, listen, I absolutely agree with Neil on this. If you take, I mean, I'm not knocking Stephen Murphy because he's a good mate, but if I had a choice between Stephen Murphy in his prime and Tyler Beskorowany in his prime, because I still don't think Besko's hit his prime yet. I think he can get better. I genuinely do. But if you ask me, let's go in his prime or Stephen Murphy in his prime, every single day of the week, Tyler Beskorowany.
Look at how filled in. I know, like we always talk about, and we've seen the evolvement, haven't we, over the years in terms of the size of the goaltender and what have you as well. Mike Menard was someone that jumped out as kind of the first, that I remember anyway, the first kind of big goalie. Less said about Mr. Menard, the better. But anyway, let's move swiftly on from that one. But Beskorowany, the size of him as well, just a huge presence. And for me, I just thought he was an incredible pickup. We saw him play in Edinburgh as well, in a horrendously average team in Edinburgh with like zero buy-in from any of that team. It was such a depleted team. They're playing with 11 skaters at one stage, and Besko was still standing on his head. I remember, actually, I think I might have been back for a game, calling a game actually maybe with Sis against the Capitals a few years ago, and Beskorowany was the best player on the ice. Clutch, superb goaltender.
I haven't even mentioned Martin Klempa. I know it's taking us back a while. Like,
get in there.
So that's a very good point. Well, statistically, I'll say, back this up, is that Marty Klempa was the best statistically goalkeeper that we had. And you look back, I'd even throw in Ryan Back. You think of a player like Ryan Back, who was a fantastic player right back in the day. But I think you look to what you have recently, and I actually agree with, I'm sorry, Davey, but I agree with both Coach and Says in the fact that I think personally that the Beskorowany is the best goalkeeper that we, from a ability point of view, the best goalkeeper we've ever had. But that's not to run down the fact that Stephen Murphy, again, I agree with you, that is who, from a longevity point of view, you look at what he did when he came in from Manchester, and he's won all these titles. From a longevity point of view, from what he means to the club, then Stephen Murphy stands above Tyler Beskorowany. But that's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for the best 6 players to put out on the ice who wore a Belfast Giants shirt. And I think you'd be hard pushed, from my point of view, to look past Tyler Beskorowany. And I think with the 2 votes there, I think Tyler Beskorowany has to be our starting goalkeeper.
I think it's important as well. Probably should have said it at the top of the show, where we're obviously going to go through this, aren't we, bit by bit, and we're going to argue the bit out. But I think all of the starting 6s that we'll have across the 4 of us, or certainly across the 3 of us, I know you're playing adjudicator, Paddy, but all of these players we would sign back in a heartbeat, especially in their prime and all the rest. They're all stellar Belfast Giants. This is not it's not a character assassination in any way, but I think we're going to have good, healthy debate, and certainly all the players, as I say, that are going to be selected here or discussed would all make it on to a top Belfast Giants team. There's no question about that.
I think Stephen Murphy will eventually make it onto the bridge, which says more about him than anybody else. His number could well hang.
Yeah, but that's a different matter.
Well,
that's a different matter, isn't it?
Well, why would you don't get your number hung on the bridge just because you played for us for a long time?
Colin Ward.
Colin Ward, mate.
Well, there are people that are on that bridge that shouldn't be on it, but that's a completely different debate. I think we could have a whole podcast. I certainly could, on the rights and wrongs of some of the numbers and some of the ones that should be on the bridge and some that were promised to be on the bridge that aren't there yet. So I just don't know how you guys can genuinely see somebody that played 60 games for the Giants. Okay, had in a really good team. Besko did not win a championship. The club won a championship. Stephen Murphy did it year on year and came back year on year. He gave us also. I don't want to use the Brit angle to belittle anyone, but he gave us that option as well. As a British goalkeeper, give us that option of the extra import out on the ice, which changed up to the hockey club. Stevie Lyle, Killer was kind of the first one to bring that in, where he had Stevie Lyle and then he had Stephen Murphy. He went away to wherever he went to. Obviously, he brought Bouncy down to Cardiff to use that same formula, have that extra import. Stephen Murphy gave us intangibles that other Besko couldn't. We actually had to play one short. Because
that's not what this debate's about, though, Davey, about imports and Brits and all the rest. You're picking your best starting six, mate. And listen, we've already made a salient points on it, but Tyler Beskorowany just had absolutely everything. He was clutch.
I'd say, sorry for jumping in, Paddy. I'd also say, Davey, if Steve Thornton or Adam Keith could put a 3-year contract or a 4-year contract in front of Tyler Beskorowany, to sign him straight away. But
but if
Besko deserved to go on to higher things.
If Steve Thornton and Adam Keefe had the ability to put a 3 or 4 year contract in front of the 2009 Stephen Murphy to give themselves the option of having an extra out import, that's the man they would go for. We're not talking about Stephen Murphy in 2016 or 2019-20, whatever it is. We're talking about Stephen Murphy in his pomp.
Right, okay, all right. So put him in his pomp. Forget about being British.
You can't forget about it. He is British. You can't forget about it.
No. Forget about that. So I know you're very Brit. I get that. But take the nationality out of the way. Tyler Beskorowany.
It's about the ability to have that extra import.
Just shut up a minute. You've got Tyler Beskorowany, or you've got Stephen Murphy to put into a playoff final in their prime. Who are you going to pick?
One played in a playoff final and one.
Stop being a politician. Who are you going to pick?
I'm going to pick the one that's been to the playoff final and won.
Tyler Beskorowany went to the Continental Cup final and should have won,
but didn't. He let more goals in than the other goalie. But you can't bring a point up and then say it's whenever you don't agree with it. Besco went to a playoff final. Murphy went to a playoff final and won it.
So
you asked the question, who would you want in a playoff?
You're looking at social distancing here. You're looking at social distancing.
I think, Davey, I
could show you pictures of Stephen Murphy with the playoff trophy. Show me one of Besco with the playoff trophy.
But that's a matter for the team and not supposed to the goalie. You win as a team, you lose as a goalie, Davey. You know that as much as anybody. However, what I will say is, I think your defense of Stephen Murphy is admirable. I don't think anybody actually disagrees with you with regards to Stephen Murphy's ability and Stephen Murphy's accolades and what he's achieved with the Belfast Giants over his time in Teal. But unfortunately for you, I think you've been outvoted 2-1, and Tyler Beskorowany is the starting goalkeeper for the Belfast Giants in our all-time starting six. We'll move on, and we're going to go for left A, and I am going to start with Neil Coach Russell. Who you got on D? First D man.
My first D man for me is I kind of look at my starting six and I think I've got two absolute locks, two players that I think should be on everybody's starting six.
Go on.
And then I've got two that could be kind of up for debate. I'm happy to have a debate on. And then there's two that I probably think, again, there could be kind of a bit more of a debate on and it could be rightfully challenged. This guy is one of the guys I'm sure I'll get debated on, but I still would classify him as one of the all-time great Belfast Giants, and that's Robbie Sandrock. I can remember Robbie in his first season here. He was a young lad, a couple of years older than I am, but he was a young lad whenever he first came to Belfast with his then girlfriend. And my first hero with the Giants was Paxton Schulte because he was big, physical, dropped the mitts. That got me interested in the sport. Robbie Sandrock, along with the likes of a Corey Lander as well, but Robbie Sandrock was the first defenseman that properly caught my attention with his skating ability, not his physical presence, but his skating ability, his defensive ability, his offensive capabilities. But that one-timer, that slap shot was just something that just caught me instantaneously. And you look, 155 games or 155 total points for the club across 181 games played. A fantastic record for the Giants, but a fantastic record for a defenseman as well. And for me, Robbie Sandrock, give me one of the. I always remember being in Nottingham one night way back when, and that must have been Robbie's first season. And where you were in the away section at the NIC, practically we were nearly on the goal line. I think we're on a 5-on-4. I think we're on a power play. And I remember just constantly, as we tended to do throughout Robbie's time in Belfast, tried to find that kind of open space for the one-timer, and found it And honestly, I was practically on that goal line. And by the time you saw the puck come back to Robbie, the puck had hit the back of the net. And I can remember it physically rebounding back out, just was the sheer velocity of the shot. And Sandrock, for me, was somebody that gave, I don't know, as a fan of the sport, I just loved watching him. I know that whenever he came back many years later after going on and playing in the DEL and what have you, he performed really well again for us on the ice. I know at times, if you were to speak to the likes of maybe Killer and those guys, he could be challenging, but challenging in the right way. He wanted the best for the organisation. He wanted the team to be as good as it could be. And he was, for me, a true Belfast Giants, bought into everything that the Belfast Giants was all about. In terms of the community element, and just was a true Belfast Giant. He loved everything about Belfast, and his skating ability and his overall prowess offensively as a defenceman was just something to behold for me. So Robbie Sandrock would be my first selection as a defenceman.
Okay, obviously there's two D men to be selecting here. Simon, who are you going for? Who's your first shout?
I wouldn't argue at all. Everything he said is absolutely tip top. Sandrock would be one of my top two. I mean, you talk about him as his ability to skate his edges and stuff. He was physical as well. He wasn't afraid to, get involved in that side of things. And he was, as a defenseman, you need to be smart. The forwards, they're not that, smart, and goalkeepers really aren't that smart at all. For a defenseman, you need to have hockey smarts, and he had every single part of it. His game was top notch. Again, going back to when he signed here, first of all, and then going on to the DEL, as Neil says, tip top, absolutely outstanding. He's definitely one of my top two, and I don't even think Davy's going to argue with that side of things. He really is a player that, again, you talk about bringing guys back at their peak and then putting them in a team for next season. Sandrock will be on that list every single time. So for me, Robbie Sandrock's a must.
Go on,
Davy.
Argue Lisa Rogan for us.
So Davy, here's my pen. Am I just writing Robbie Sandrock?
The thing is, I had a lock. I had a lock and Jay, like Coach says, yeah, and it wasn't Robbie Sandrock, but on my other side of I had names that it's more for the second debate that we're going to have now. I'm going to have to try and force my second guy in, because Robbie Sandrock was my second guy on D. With names like Kelman, Vandermeer, Stewart, Mason, Sandrock, Walser. So good to name them twice. Robbie Sandrock. How could you? I remember Coach commentating when he scored past Kowalski from, what was it, 185 feet or something. Yeah. Robbie Sandrock had everything. He had skating. As he got older, he probably got more physical. That comes with a little bit of frustration as well. Robbie Sandrock, they have guys who've gone through the superlatives. I'd love there to be more debate about it, but he's just so good that he has to be in the starting six.
A multiple-time championship winner with the Belfast Giants. And let's not forget that as a D-man, as you said, Coach, when he came in as a young lad, as a D-man, he ended up that season as the Belfast Giants top point scorer.
Yeah. Which I'll have to come back to Coach there on his numbers. His numbers are slightly skewed. Robbie Sandrock played 257 games for the Belfast Giants, 51 goals, 154 assists, good for 205 points from a D-man. Incredible, 0.8 points per game. Just absolutely stellar career.
I've just figured out what I've done and not counted in playoffs.
You got elite prospects in front of you? Is that what it was?
No, I did. Yeah, that's exactly what I've just done. Yeah, I do have. Yeah. We
don't do elite prospects. We do Davy McGimpsey.
Yeah.
So then what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll start with you, Davy. Then we've got the lock, we've got the name, we've got one name on the sheet. We've got Robbie Sandrock. Let's open these doors. Who's the second? Who's his line mate?
The Rolls Royce. That is Calvin Elfring.
That's not a surprise.
Everything about Alfie from the day he stepped on Belfast ice just exuded class. When he was off the ice, he was an even classier guy. But on the ice, he made that relationship straight away with Cody Brickwell. That dovetailed so brilliantly. Calvin Elfring, Player of the Year for the Kingdom of the Giants in that first season. We win trophies with him. He comes back that second year, perhaps doesn't get the best D partner that season, But, everything he did in that first year, everything he did in his career before he came to Belfast Giants, the reason we signed him, but he could skate, he could pick a pass, he could score a goal. Coach talks about clutch. Not just scoring goals as being clutch, is making the right plays at the right time, making the simple plays. Who can forget the night he fought down? I can't remember who he fought, and I could look it up here.
Golden Fretter
down behind
Fretter
at Siz's end of the ice. For a guy that hardly ever dropped the gloves through the career, he loved the Belfast Giants. In the 2 years, you still see Elfie on Twitter now. Elfie, to me, probably when he looks back on his career, he's had some great things. He probably finished as a Belfast Giant because he wanted to. He probably could have gone on another year. He could have stayed in Belfast. He probably could have gone somewhere else. I remember Coach interviewing him when he first came to Belfast and talking about being excited about playing at the age he was. Never stretched through his whole career. He still has a laugh about that. Never got injured. Was there every day. First at training, last to go home. An example to young guys how to be a professional. For me, he's got to give me this one, lads. Calvin Elfring.
Funny, Elfring, when he was, we obviously came from Straubing Tigers, and I had the opportunity to go to Munich and watch Red Bull, as I've done a few times, and they were playing Straubing at that time, and we'd had Elfring for about half a season at that point, and walking past in a Giants shirt at the game, and the Straubing fans basically come over, and all they wanted to talk about was Calvin Elfring, because he meant so much to them. He seems to be the type of player, whatever club he had went to, he had made a real impression. Coach, your second name, please.
It's so hard to argue against Davy there, and I have actually Elfie in my second top six. But this next position is the one that I expect to be challenged on, and I probably will agree to relent in some manner, shape, or form. But my second pick is a guy. You guys know what I'm like whenever it comes to players and what I kind of look out for and what have you. And leadership is something that always stands out. And it, some guys are leaders in the sense that they're super vocal. Other guys are leaders in the sense that, by their actions. Adam Keefe was an actions guy. He was somebody that, jump on my shoulder, I'll block all the shots, I look after you, and I lead this team to glory. My second pick is a guy from quite a few years ago, but a championship winning defenseman, a league championship winning defenseman. That's Jeremy Rebick, the Reputation. Jeremy Rebick was a major acquisition for this hockey club and came along just at the right time. Had a good team there, but I think that team, from memory, it needed a Jeremy Rebick to kind of hold it together at times, and that's exactly what he did. Massively respected inside that locker room by one and all. Skating ability, Simon was talking about Robbie there in terms of his edge work and all that type of stuff. I mean, Rebick was one of the most intuitive defensemen that I've ever come across in my time kind of watching the Super League and the Elite League. Sad that we only had him for one season, a major disappointment. And we did get him towards the back end of his career, as we did with Elfie as well. If I was counter-arguing the argument in some way, and Davey, I agree with 99.999% of what you said about Elfie there. Absolute legend of a guy and a player. Maybe his second year wasn't as productive as his first year, from memory anyway. I don't have the stats in front of me, but that was the memory. And you talk about that fantastic partnership, Brookwell and Elfring in that first season. One of the best pairings, if not the best pairing that the Belfast Giants have ever had. But for me, I'm going to go with my gut instinct on this one, and Jeremy Rebick would be my second choice to go alongside Robbie Sandrock on D.
Sis?
Very, very valid points for both Jeremy Rebick and Calvin Elfring. I mean, we've talked about, Davey mentioned a couple of other names there, and my one of my all-time favourite Giants is Big Jason Bowen. What a player that big man was. He spent 3 or 4 years here, and as a defensive defenseman, you're talking about, as a parent, you've got Robbie Sandrock, who would be the offensive side. Do you need a guy that's just sitting there and wait for him, like Calvin Elfring had when he had Cody Brookwell, even though Brookwell, in all fairness, Elfring would have made any of us four look a decent defenseman. And when he played in Belfast, that's never rated Cody Brookwell in any way, shape, or form, to be honest. But
season one, big man.
What's that?
Even in his first season,
Elfring would have made anybody look good in that year.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I didn't get Brookwell at all. I just don't. All right, he wasn't that old. He was only 25, 26 years of age.
Yeah.
But for me, again, if you'd have put any defenseman that we've ever had as a Belfast Giant, put that uniform on, Alfie would have made them look good. He was a really, really top player. You talk about, Mike Jacobson. You haven't mentioned Mike Jacobson. Michael Jacobson was a great player for us as well. Derek Walzer. Wally, when he came in, absolutely top notch, and
as a D-man though.
As a well, again, he was a defenseman. That's what he was. If you ask him what position he played, he would say defense. Jeff Mason, he's our all-time top point scorer from the back end. We talk about Tim Coleman, and getting how good was Todd Kalman in his prime as well. But for me, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised at this, is the Rolls Royce himself and Jim Vandermeer. Jimbo was just, for me, he was just unbelievable. You talk about Robbie Sandrock being that good. We've all agreed, and Robbie Sandrock coming in as the first pick on the back end. But Jim Vandermeer was that Rolls Royce, and he played at the highest level for over 450 games. He was, you don't get to play in the NHL for that length of time for being an average player. He was just top notch, and for Jim coming in here and doing what he did and playing, Neil, you've talked about it on numerous occasions over the last 10, 12 years, and that's one thing I know you really look at. You've got guys who are hurt and they play for the badge, and Jim Vandermeer did that. I know that there's times over the last couple of years that he played in Belfast that he should not have played. He played with a broken wrist for at least 20 games because we were really short-handed. He couldn't shoot the puck. Didn't need to shoot the puck because he was that good. His vision was exemplary, absolutely unbelievable. Davy and I were talking there a few weeks ago about when the Giants put on the remember they were talking about the Continental Cup and they replayed them again on the Saturday night or whatever it was. And there was a pass from Jim Vandermeer to Curtis Leonard. Nobody else. There was 12 players on the ice, including the two goalies, and not one of the guys knew what was going to happen with that. Jimbo, as if he looked in the glass at the reflection of where Curtis Leonard was, and he put the pass right onto his stick. Jim Vandermeer, his skating was outstanding. I think he's probably a wee bit unlucky not to get any power play points because if you'd have watched him in practice on tipping the puck in front of the net, I have never in my life seen anybody do it as well as Jim Vandermeer. You used to get guys shooting bombs from the point. Jim would stand there all day long just trying to tip and pass the goaltender in practice. You talk about him being off the ice. He bought in off the ice as well. We Blake and what have you were visited on numerous occasions by Jimbo. And for me, Jim Vandermeer is definitely a guy that's got to be mentioned in that in that first pairing as the top two in the all-time defenseman of Belfast Giants history.
So difficult. Sorry, Paddy, just really quick from me. So difficult to disagree with either of the boys there. There's one name that I have rhymed on about for countless years, and I think I heard one of you guys maybe mention his name just in passing. But if we were going for arguably the best Belfast Giants defenseman, for me, the best, but he only had, I think it was just one season here way back when. So I think certain elements of this, there's maybe a bit of recency bias.
Don't say Terence Sandwith. Please don't say Terence Sandwith.
Yeah, big man, you taught him how to skate back. Let's not forget that.
Won the Continental Cup.
I did actually, yeah, that's right.
That Chad Allen was right up there for me as the best defenseman that we ever had. Another guy that jumped out that I jotted down was from about 8 or 9 years ago, John Gleed on D.
Strong. What a player.
he would have transitioned into at any level, ISL level, elite league as it built up into the force that it has been the last couple of years. He was a fantastic hockey player and would have graced any of the Belfast Giants top teams for sure. But
we haven't even mentioned Josh Roach last season. What a first 5 months he had. He sort of quietened down towards the end of the year. Yeah, I think in his college days he was a forward, and he dropped back to play D. Again, that's got to be commended as well. And I forgot all about Sean Allen. What a play! That guy was unbelievable.
Scored the winning goal against the Bracknell Bees that handed us our first league title.
Quality.
Do you know one person we haven't mentioned? Shane Johnson.
I was just about to jump in again. Say sorry, Paddy, but Shane Johnson. I mean, that was another guy. I never have been like the type of person to go in and like watch warm-ups or get in early. I always tended to arrive just as the game was about to start. But I can distinctly remember, and I said to Shane actually one of the last times I was back home, I used to go in purposely whenever I knew they were on the ice. I used to go in purposely to watch Shane warm up. Yeah, again, you talk about someone, Simon, you know this more acutely than the likes of me, but the skating ability of him, like he was just sublime to watch. And a gritty little so-and-so. I remember him getting involved in that. He was almost like an old-fashioned version of Darrell Lloyd. And somebody used to get under the opposition's skin big time. But you talk about transitioning the puck, good vision, went tape to tape. Okay, wasn't the most physical guy in the world, but wasn't afraid either to kind of mix it up in some ways as well. But Shane Johnson, absolutely, he is one of the guys that does deserve to have his name up in the rafters, in my opinion.
And then the last one that I think that he deserves a serious consideration. I know again Jim Vandermeer, but with having Robbie Sandrock as my first, I do think that Jim Vandermeer needs to be in there. But nobody's mentioned Kevin Rain. You've got to look at it. If you're a coach and you're putting that team together, you've got to have an offensive defenseman and you've got to have a defensive defenseman.
That's not what we're trying.
No. But again, you're talking about your best line ever.
Yeah, but if they score 10,
6 guys on the ice,
like if their team scores 10, we're going to score 11. That's the way my team's getting built. I'm not worried about blocking shots. I'm not worried about conceding goals. We'll score for fun, my team. Kevin Rain blocked shots.
You might concede a few like Tyler Beskorowany in there, mate.
Kevin Rain has been sensational since he came back to the Belfast Giants after his little tour around Europe. He's been brilliant. But you said it right at the very start when you were talking about Elfie. Elfring makes whoever's beside him better. Jeremy Rebeck.
So does Jimbo.
Jeremy Rebeck, unbelievable. You should have said that then. Jeremy Rebeck, unbelievable. Yes, you talk about Shane Johnson transitioning the puck. Derek Walser, the same. Yeah. Todd Kelman. I'm just looking down my list here of who I had in my honourable mentions. Jeff Mason. You look down the top of our statistical list, if you like, from the top. Mace, Kelman, Sandrock, Johnny, Stewie, who we haven't mentioned. Absolute Iron Man.
Stewie was one that was really missing from this.
Belfast Giants. Who can forget him coming back again in that Theo season, scoring that slap shot from the blue line on his return to Belfast? Derek Walser, and then you go into the Alfies, Bosey, Graham Walton. I know he's not going to get into our starting 600 appearances nearly for a Ballybean boy in his local team. Unbelievable. Jason Bowen, Spiro, fastest player ever to 50 points for a D-man. Mike Burgoyne, who can forget his 5-on-3 short-handed goal to win the Challenge Cup in the Ice Bowl. There's lots of honourable mentions and there's lots of players. And I don't disagree with you. Says that Jim Vandermeer was absolutely brilliant for us. And I don't disagree that Jeremy Rebeck was sensational as a captain. I think it was under Doug Christensen. But for me, Calvin Elfring elevated every player around him when he was on the ice. Not just his D partners. He did everything when he was on the ice. As a Rolls Royce, as I called him at the very start, Calvin Elfring, I'm not going to concede this one. Calvin Elfring has to be in this team.
Okay, so somebody has to concede. So we have Elfring, Rebeck, and Jim Vandermeer. Somebody has to drop out for us. Says you put for Jim Vandermeer. From Rebeck and Elfring, who are you dropping out? You've got to choose. Says one of those two, Rebeck or Elfring. One of those has to drop.
two great players, two really great players.
But this, like, again, this is not a reflection on the player. This is a reflection on who we want in our side. So one of those two players, you would.
I would tend to agree. I would be agreeing with Davy. Elfring, Calvin was just happy birthday to him, by the way. From it was the other day. God knows when we're putting this out, but Elfie was absolute top class, as was Rebick. But if it was between the two of them, and it was signing one of those guys again for the Belfast Giants, and again both towards the end of their careers, it would definitely be Calvin Elfring.
So it's a one elimination vote for Rebick. Coach, you went for Rebick. So between Elfring and Jim Vandermeer, who are you eliminating? Who are you keeping?
It's such a difficult one, but I think I always look back, and I'm on day thinking about this actually over the last few days whenever we've been talking about doing this, and thinking back again, the type of hockey that I have always historically enjoyed, that kind of no-nonsense style of hockey, but enjoy the flair players very much as well. And I always think, outside of Jason Bowen, Sis is going to laugh here, the likes of Terence Sandwith, we've never really had like a massively imposing and kind of tough D-man who kept forwards honest on a game-by-game basis, until we signed Jim Vandermeer. So if I'm looking at unlike Davy, I'm not just thinking of this as like you score 10, we'll score 11. I'm trying to add a bit of structure to it and kind of maybe put a coach's hat on or a general manager's hat on.
Nickerson? Martinelli?
Martinelli, I wouldn't. Nickerson, fair enough with Nickerson. But Martinelli, I wouldn't put necessarily in that bracket. But Jim Vandermeer is, I would probably end up going with Jim, just to kind of complement the kind of offensive abilities and capabilities of a Robbie Sandrock as his D partner. But like literally nothing between them. I mean, Elfring, just an absolute stud of a player.
So you're choosing Jim Vandermeer. So you're eliminating Elfring from your list. Yeah. So that's one vote. Davey, you chose Calvin Elfring between Rebick and Jim Vandermeer. Who are you getting rid of? Otherwise, the vote comes down to me.
or sorry, what?
Otherwise, the vote comes down to me.
I might leave the vote down to you, Paddy, and just give them both an honorable mention. Jeremy Rebick, when he played 49 games for the Belfast Giants, yes, he was good. Yes, we won a championship. Alfie came back. I think if Alfie had been younger, he would have stayed here for longer. Yeah. Rebick came, saw, conquered, and left. Alfie came, saw, conquered, and stayed. So for that, I'm still going with. I'm going to have to go with Jim Vandermeer.
So that's an elimination for Rebick. Rebick's eliminated, so we're down to choose between. Sorry, Coach. To be fair, if it had come down to me, I totally agree that I think that I think those three names, from my perspective, were the three names that were in my head. Now I think that is not to disrespect the legends that have been named, and the likes of Jeff Mason, Todd Kelman, Graham Walton, Rob Stewart, who have been fantastic for us on day. Troy Newmeyer. These guys were absolutely brilliant when it came to the Belfast Giants.
Newmeyer, jeez Louise, that's a plus.
What about? I know he only played. I can't remember how many games he did play, but how good was Jerome Leduc when he played?
Leduc was unbelievable. I think it was
superb.
14 games or something, 15 games.
14 games, 14 points.
Yeah, that kid was unbelievable. He was absolutely sensational. And we've been blessed with so many good players that have played for our team over the last 20 seasons, 19 seasons. It's just incredible when you think back of I mean, again, you talk about Big Graham Walton, if you'd have said to Graham Walton when he signed for the Belfast Giants in 2004, whatever it was, you're going to play for 10 years here, it looked at you as if you had two heads. He'd have said, catch yourself on. There's absolutely no chance. And for him to go out there and you talk about longevity and him go out and play that many games for the Giants and he was very seldom injured as well. He was lucky with that side of things of his career, but again, when you're talking about the best players on the defensive side and picking two from how many played for the Giants and from defence stadium? Was it 80, 70, 80?
60.
60 players. You're asking to pick two. You know, it's unbelievable that you come down to, yeah, we've all agreed on Robbie Sandrock, but between Elfring and Jim Vandermeer,
so
it's asking to see, you know, well, I don't know. It's such a tough decision.
Don't go there.
So obviously, then with Davy's vote going for Elfring, with Sis's vote going for Jim Vandermeer, the casting vote between these two falls to you, Mr. Russell. So between Elfring and Jim Vandermeer, who will be partnering Robbie Sandrock on defence for the Belfast Giants?
I think I'm going to have to stick to my original statement there a couple of minutes ago. Just looking at the composition of the team and to compliment Robbie, I think on this occasion I will go with Jim Vandermeer, but there is literally a hair's breadth between Elfring and JVD. So Jim Vandermeer.
Sorry, Jim Vandermeer will be the partner to Robbie Sandrock on defence for the Belfast Giants.